Now, this information is either going to help you or it's going to hurt you. Either way, it can help you, but it might hurt you first, right? Sexual boundaries are not static. They're dynamic, right? When you understand the sexual boundaries are not static, but that they're dynamic, you get to a place where you recognize, okay, cool, if somebody's not on what you want, you can walk the fuck away. But what you also understand is that there are certain ways that you've dealt with people, certain ways that you've presented yourself, certain places in people's lives that you've approached them in, certain things that you've said, certain energy that you've conveyed that put people into a mindset to where they weren't comfortable doing certain things that they would be comfortable doing with someone else. Now, the difficult part about understanding that sexual boundaries are not static is simply understanding that when it comes to sexual boundaries, sometimes it's a matter of attraction. Most of the time it's a matter of attraction, right? And I can break that down a little bit more in depth. Okay, so most of the time it's about attraction, but then there's also a respect matter. There's also a safety matter, right? And there's also a matter of whether or not someone's desire overrides their fear. And a difficult part to understand about sexual boundaries being dynamic and not static is that sometimes loving somebody can be something that increases their boundaries and sexual standards. You know, this is a big reason why I say that a woman has to be a hoe before she's a housewife, right? Because what you don't want to do is coddle a woman's Madonna whore complex, or you don't want to coddle your own Madonna whore complex, and you don't want to coddle a woman's gentleman gigolo complex, right? That's a phrase that I've coined. You don't want to coddle that. And you can coddle a woman's gentleman gigolo complex by understanding this, right? There's feminine submissive, which is pretty much being down for whatever, right? But then there's also being masculine submissive. And most people, when they think of the word submissive, they're thinking about masculine submissive. They're thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to tell her what I want to do, and if she does what I want her to do and she's getting what she needs to get out of it, then she's going to be willing to do it. That's masculine submissive. That's not feminine submissive, right? And the thing to understand about masculine submissive is that it works on a transactional basis. So that transactional basis that it works on is this. That'll be like a woman trading her body for access to you emotionally, financially, or socially, right? And once you understand that, one thing to think about is this: when someone's masculine submissive, they're not lubricated enough with femininity and desire for that to come from an intrinsic place, right? Oftentimes it's based on a certain level of social programming and a certain level of their social mask. You're not behind their social mask when someone's masculine submissive, right? So what can happen with this individual is they may really be able to see themselves as not being able to go beyond the point that they see in their minds, but they can come across a person who can do that for them. Now, what I'll say about it is this: there are ways of making yourself that person, but chances are that's going to be certain tactics that could be a little bit manipulative. There are tactics that could be considered abusive by other people. It's some toxic shit. You got to be toxic to bypass the social mask of a woman who is masculine submissive, right? You have to be toxic to do it. Woman feminine submissive, you ain't got to be toxic to do it, right? You only got to be toxic to do it. I mean, naturally, it's a certain level of toxicity, because like what I say is this: there's moral toxicity, amoral toxicity, immoral toxicity. I believe every man should be toxic. So that means at least when you first approach a woman, you need to approach her on a level of toxicity to where you are not engaging with her on a format of looking at her through the frame of her social mask. If you're engaging with the woman on the basis of judging her off of her social mask, how she presents herself in the public eye, then you're setting yourself up to deal with a woman who may be masculine submissive or masculine dominant, right? Or she may be a feminine dominant woman, right? So what I mean by that is you present yourself up front with that type of energy, right? And part of how a woman's sexual boundaries become static with you, or they start to degrade, or they start to denigrate, or they start to erode, partially comes from a place of being prematurely integrated. So think about it like this: whatever you're trading to get access to that woman's body, she sees giving her body as something that is the resource for what you're offering. So if you start trying to get more from her for less than what you're giving, right, then she's going to feel like she's being cheated. So that means if you offer a woman a relationship, right, before she's even had sex with you, before she's done certain things that she likes sexually, right? Then she may say she has to be married to do those things. Now, there's no guarantee that that woman is going to do those things when you get married. Understand that. She might, but the fact that you're allowing her to take that role is something that can mess things up. See, something to understand about a masculine submissive woman is that, you know, if she's giving her body to you, right, in exchange for whatever you're giving her, you're still putting her in a dominant position. You're still putting her in a masculine position, because although you may be penetrating her, primarily you're the main person who's taking pleasure out of it, because to be in the dominant position means that you're the primary giver of pleasure, right? So if she's the primary giver of pleasure, the one who wants sex more, then she's in a dominant position. She may feel like, well, I don't have to do more to satisfy this individual, so why would I do more? Because she's not looking at it on a basis of, okay, what is the best thing I can, how can I best satisfy this person, because I really love them, I really like them, I'm really attracted to them, I really respect them, I want to impress them. It's more so of a basis of, you know, I need to take care of their needs, because that's what comes with this scenario. And a lot of men, they'll speak to a woman in a way to make sex a duty, to make sex a chore, and then to wonder why a woman feels that way. Now, when you're prematurely integrated, that can't be helped, right? Because if that woman's desire level isn't high enough, she may go through psychological reactance, where if you take your foot off her neck, as far as being, you know, engaging sexually or initiating sexually, then that woman may get to a place where she just sees that as a time to take a break, so that she's not going to start to initiate. And if she does, if you start to get too comfortable with it, you start to feel like it's supposed to happen too consistently, then she'll pull back on you sexually. So premature integration plays a big part in people believing that sexual boundaries are static, but that's not necessarily the case. Sexual boundaries are dynamic. But you got to understand, at the point that you add emotion in, or a relationship in, or at the point that you start to integrate non-sexual things into the relationship, oftentimes if a woman has a particular mindset, a particular complex, then that woman is very likely that that particular woman may take a mindset where that's where the sex is either going to start falling off, right, as far as the dominant aspect of it that you display, right, and what she's receptive to, right? Now, she may want to make love, right, but making love is often an integrated thing. So either it's going to be prematurely integrated or it's going to be integrated. That's the 9-7 dichotomy, right? And the 9-7 dichotomy works like this. Diet level of sexual attraction. A woman is sexually attracted to you enough to where if you do things that are feminine during sex, it's going to turn her on even more. And she's going to actively desire you enough to still feel like those things are things that sexually attract her and sexually turn her on to an extent. But at a 7 level of sexual attraction, something that happens is this, right? At a 7 level of sexual attraction, that woman is trading sex for that emotional intimacy that you're giving her. All right. So to want to be more dominant with her sexually, to want her to do more sexually, to want her to pick up the slack, that's going to be something that feels like, well, if I'm not getting something out of it, why am I doing it? Right. So you got to watch out for women who speak about sex in a way of wanting everything to be real gentle, who speak about sex in a way of wanting everything to be real soft, or wanting everything to be comfortable, right? Desire overrides comfort. You don't want to deal with the woman who sees you from a perspective of what's sexually comfortable. You want a woman who wants to be excited, enthralled, enticed, and wrapped up in the idea of getting lost in the sauce having sex with you, right? You know, tapping out ain't enough. You wanted to tap in. That's the 9-7 dichotomy. See, sexual standards, sexual boundaries, they're not static. And once you understand that, there are certain situations, let's say you might be married already, right? It's not realistic for you to say, okay, you're just going to be a dom, you're just going to be masculine and dominant overnight. No, you've already fucked it up some. Now, there are different scenarios in which that can be a situation where you can transition, right? Now, that's integration when you're prematurely integrated. But it's much, 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 much more easy to start from the beginning and let a woman go on her fucking way if she's not down for whatever you down for, than to lead with love, lead with money, lead with time, attention, energy, lead with emotional validation, social validation, and then just expect that woman to be able to get completely on your program unless that's a program that she's already experienced more than that with someone else, and she's able to compartmentalize that, or she has developed a fetish for those exact things. Because sometimes a woman will do things for a specific person that she may not want to do for everybody, right? Like, to me, I'm a degrader. I like to degrade women during sex. You know, I like to call a woman my bitch. I like to call her a slut. I like to smack her. There's certain things I like to do. I like to put in her throat, make her throw up. You know, these are just things that I enjoy, right? You know, like, I like to choke the shit out of a woman. I like to put my thumb in her ass, right? Certain things that I enjoy. And the women who I deal with, they enjoy these things as well. But you have to understand that there's a difference between a masculine submissive woman and a feminine submissive woman. If you don't understand that, then how that woman behaves with you is going to be a little bit different. But you got to stop giving women credit for not being your hoe. That's something I always say, right? She got to be your hoe before she's a housewife. Because if you start trying to move things further emotionally with the woman before she's reached your standards sexually, as far as the quality, quantity, intensity, and kinkiness of the sex, then you're going to be in a situation where, one, your needs may not be fully met. Two, if she wants more out of the relationship, she might start pulling back from what she's doing. Three, she may never get to that place where she's fully comfortable. And four, that woman could have already experienced those things with someone else, or that woman could go through let that hurt go pussy, or the non-stick principle, where she goes and experiences those things with someone else, right? And if she goes and experiences those things with someone else, then now either you have to leave her alone, or you're going to be in a situation to where she may feel a little guilty, so she'll do it. She may even tell you then that she won't do it. But then you're going to have the emotional discipline with the woman you're already emotionally invested in to be able to say, okay, cool, well now this is what we're doing. And most men probably not going to be able to do that. Most men are going to have a certain level of vitriol. But what I will say about it is this: for masculine submissive women, a lot of the times that's how it works. Like, when a woman's taking a masculine submissive stance with you, she oftentimes has to play with fire, fuck up, and feel guilty. And that's when she gets to a little bit more of a feminine stance, to where you can take things to the next level sexually. And that's the place where, if the reason that you're not doing that is because you've been lessening your dominance, then you get more dominant with her out of your loss of respect in that particular moment. See, don't worry about dealing with the woman from a perspective of trying to respect her. Like, you respect her nature, you respect her frame, you respect her form, you respect the fact that she's a feminine being. That doesn't mean you have to respect her in the way that you respect a man, right? And I don't mean that to be misogynistic. You know, we can even flip this around. We can even flip this around and say, if a man is feminine submissive, then respect between the submissive doesn't look the same between the respect between the feminine submissive and the masculine dominant. It doesn't look the same. It's just like respect between the teacher and the master. You can have a female martial arts instructor. She might come and slap the back of your legs with a wiffle bat. You know what I mean? She might have you do hella push-ups. She may throw you in there with somebody bigger than you and get your ass beat. She may do a variety of things that would make you uncomfortable, but they stretch you and grow you as a person. And in the same way, that's how a lot of things can work sexually, right? So these are just some things to understand. It's not always about saying, okay, do you agree with every single little detail of what we're doing ahead of time? No, you want to deal with a woman who respects you enough and desires you enough to be on a blanket consent level to where you can do certain things in a spontaneous way, so that you can get that little shock, that little toxicity, that little shock of excitement from things that she wasn't anticipating or expecting. And the thing about dealing with a woman who's masculine submissive is that that toxicity that you have to use to take her to the next level sexually is often going to be a thing to where it's a risk. It's a risk. There's certain things that I've done to where those risks haven't backfired on me, but at the same time, I know that I have to know these women very well to do things the way that I did in certain scenarios. In certain scenarios, I just had enough experience with these different nuances to be able to tell the difference, so that I wouldn't do certain things. Like, I had a woman tell me before, that she loved the fact that I knew the difference between her saying stop because it felt too good and saying stop because it felt uncomfortable or that it hurt. And if you don't know the difference between those two things, then it's not going to be good for you to take certain risks. But sometimes that loss of respect that you can have from a woman playing with fire or doing some goofy shit when you know it's your fault that it's going that way. Like, let's say I knew this one woman, she was dealing with this guy. She said she was dating a dude for a whole year. She could count on her hands how many times they had sex. That's damn near not even cheating. You feel me? Like, no, that's ridiculous. If you're not taking care of your conjugal duties and you want a committed relationship, it's your fault if you get cheated on. I'm gonna say that right now, man or woman, that's your fault. Within reason, right? Within reason. You should communicate what your needs are, but if that person is sitting there not being satisfied, that's your fault. But you got to understand the difference between, you know, a person who's cool with that because they're not attracted to you, right? If you got a low sex drive, you got to know the difference between somebody who's cool with that because they're not attracted to you, and the difference between somebody who is just holding in how they feel and just trying to respect your boundaries, right? And neither one of those is good, right? Neither one of those is good. So just Brody, just talking about sexual boundaries. I could probably give some examples. I've had women who, you know, I could be degrading with them. There's certain things I could do, certain places I could fuck them at, certain I could put in their throat, have them thrown up, different things I could do to certain women that they were with men for years before me that they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't allow those men to do, but they would allow me to do it relatively quickly. And part of it was just because of how I led. Sometimes it was just the timing of when I met those women, where they were in their cup, where they were in their lives, right? Part of it was just different things about it. My dominance, my strong sexual energy, just the playful, curious nature of it. Another aspect of it, just catching a woman's hand in the cookie jar, being very seductive. And when you do things in that particular way and you lead that way, then if a woman's receptive to that, then chances are a lot of the sexual boundaries she used to have will go away. But there are ways of bypassing it after you've already been with a woman, but though that's a lot more difficult than doing that with somebody before you start establishing any type of emotional intimacy or any type of relationship. So, you know, sexual boundaries aren't static. This is Brody. I'm out.